Across Canada, nonprofits continue to play an essentially important role in ensuring a measurable impact and equipping all people of all abilities with the sustainability necessary to ensure that all societal advantages are afforded to all. According to Sector Source, there are approximately 170,000 nonprofit or charitable organizations across Canada, 85,000 of which are recognized as registered charities by the Canadian Revenue Agency. If you have any experience in the space, big or small, you're familiar with the terms maximizing every dollar and doing more with less. Exploring such a concept requires careful consideration and thought. With this in mind, I enlisted the expertise and the insights of Karen Knight. She runs her own consulting firm and has dedicated her professional life to helping nonprofits increase their impact and conserve their resources by helping them maximize the volunteers and the workforce that they already have. She joined me this week to have a discussion about how we can get a full level of optimization and impact out of Canadian nonprofits. I'm Kevin McShann. Let's have this conversation. Karen, if you're ready, I'll take a moment to welcome you to the show, and I'm excited to talk to you this afternoon about a nonprofit. Great to be with you, and thanks so much for being here.
It's a joy to be part of the show.
Absolutely. Now, Karen, I know your life work has to do with helping nonprofits maximize their staff and volunteers. So I'm wondering if you can tell me about all the great work that you do.
I've got, I'm as you said, I'm a consultant who helps not-for-profits specifically with their volunteer programs. So if you have trouble finding volunteers or keeping volunteers, or maybe your volunteers keep making mistakes, I can go in and have a look at your program and give you some ideas on tweaks that you can make to make things better so that you have a happy, committed volunteer team.
Yeah, fabulous. That's important work for sure. And I've been wanting to ask you this question all week about, the importance of nonprofits and how they can remain viable throughout the COVID-19 pandemic.
Yeah, that's something that's been a challenge for a lot of non-for-profits in the last little while. I've seen lots and lots of them have to close their doors. I find that there's kind of two things that you really need to do. And one is be a creative problem solver. For example, I work with a riding association, a therapeutic riding association. So we put people with disabilities or mental health issues on horses and use the horse to try and improve their health. Now, part of that, many of our clients are immune compromised, and they can't necessarily sit on their own. They need help to stay in the saddle. So what we do is we have what are called sidewalkers. We have people who walk and hold them steady as they go. Now, that's how riding associations everywhere kind of do it. And the trouble is you can't social distance that way. I mean, you are in actual physical contact. And so a lot of riding associations kind of closed that part of their program, or they really limited it and just kind of hoped that they could survive until COVID was over. Now, that was 2 years ago. What we did was we took the people who were already in the client's bubble, so their parents, their care workers, whatever, and trained them to be sidewalkers so that they could still have all the benefits of the program without being exposed to people outside their bubble. So you just have to think of different ways of doing it. And there was a side benefit to that too, because a lot of the people, family members and such who were trained, are still volunteering even though things are starting to open up again. And they're volunteering with more than just their family members. So we got new volunteers out of it. But you have to think differently, and you can't just hunker down and hope that this is going to end, because you won't survive.
With every new challenge comes an opportunity, doesn't it?
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, and to that point, Karen, I view a nonprofit as sort of the heartbeat to any community. They are there to offer an arm of support to all people, regardless of their social or economic background. So I'm curious to get your thoughts on how nonprofits play the role of being the heartbeat of communities as well.
Oh, they are, and I don't. I'm not really sure how they do it. They just are part of it. It's people who get involved in not-for-profits, whether that be as a volunteer or on the board or as a staff member, they are people with absolutely amazingly big hearts. They are the people in a community that care and that want to make a difference in the world, or even if it's just in their community, or even if it's just one person, they want to make a difference. And when you get a whole bunch of people who feel that way, they liven up an entire community. Here in Kamloops, BC, where I am, we have something called snow angels who go and shovel driveways for seniors and other people who can't do that sort of thing for themselves. So there's just all sorts of things. There's so many people with big hearts, and the more of them you have in the community, the stronger the whole community becomes. Just like our physical body, if you have a strong, healthy heart, you'll have a strong, healthy body.
Yeah, absolutely. And when we look at leaderships of nonprofits, I'm also wondering your thoughts on how you think leaders of nonprofits can become effective leaders that people want to follow when it comes to the nonprofit sector.
It's funny because there is no amazing insights here. It's being authentic. It's not asking people to do something you wouldn't do. It's all this information has been out there for decades on how to be a good leader. You just have to do it, and it's not always easy, and it takes courage and it takes work. But if you want to be a leader, you do the work. You make yourself learn things. I'm huge in learning, lifelong learning. I am constantly studying the trends and the new research and everything that comes out about not-for-profits and volunteering. And that's what makes me good at what I do. And any leader has to be a learner. They have to be somebody who is willing to learn, to be willing to say, I don't know everything. Yeah, leadership and the skills of leadership, we've known for decades how to do it. You just have to buckle down and do it.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the tenets that I live my personal life by is that never closing my mind off to learning, right? You can always learn new things no matter how old you get, right?
Exactly. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. And Karen, tell me, I'm also one of the big tenets that I live my life by is that inclusion is the gateway to independence. And I personally was born with cerebral palsy, and I'm always looking for ways to promote diversity, equity, and inclusion. So, uh, as it relates to volunteers, how do you think we can increase diversity and inclusion when it comes to recruiting and maintaining volunteers for nonprofits?
It's a huge issue, and it's something that really important to me. I grew up in a very racist, bigoted family. Like, the words that were commonly used around my house horrify me now. I moved away from home. I grew up in a really small town in northern British Columbia. And when I moved at 18 to Vancouver, my eyes were opened up in an amazing way. Oh, these people aren't so different from me, really. It was a wonderful thing for me to experience. It opened my world up in ways that my family, who haven't left that town, still don't understand. I'm so lucky that I had the opportunity to meet people from all different ages and ethnicities and gender diversity and all that sort of thing. I just love it. Sorry, I get passionate about that.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with expressing passion. Absolutely.
But with volunteers, if you're wanting to build a volunteer team that is diverse, I heard a wonderful quote, and I'm sorry, I don't remember the guy's name, but he said, you can't create inclusion for somebody. You have to co-create it with them. And so I think whatever we do for inclusion, that has to be kind of a key thing. We don't just go and put a program in place and hope it'll work. We have to work with the people we're trying to include.
Absolutely.
So if you go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say representation matters, doesn't it?
It does. It absolutely does. So, but if you're looking at your volunteers and you see a gap in some way, so for example, all your volunteers are 50 plus, you want to get younger people on the board or on your team, well, go where those people are. So go to a university, go to a high school and start recruiting there. You have to be very strategic in your recruitment. So if you don't have a lot of people of color or from different cultural backgrounds, go to your local immigration society and start recruiting people from there, or your local Sikh community or whatever. Go to where you see the gap and ask, say, we're looking for volunteers. And then ask them, as I mentioned at the beginning, ask them what it takes for them to feel included and be part of the team, so that you build it, like I said, you co-create it, your inclusion with them.
Trends in terms of trends, in terms of how you look at how a nonprofits will evolve within, say, the next 5 to 10 years.
Right. Okay. There's one major trend in volunteering specifically that I've been keeping a close eye on. In Canada, we have an absolutely amazing number of people who volunteer. According to Stats Canada, 78% of Canadians have volunteered in the last year. So that's a huge number. We have a big heart in Canada. But the one thing that they tracked was the difference between formal and informal volunteering. So formal volunteers are the people who work for the SPCA or they work for a particular organization. Informal volunteers are people who go out and help strangers without any without being connected to any organization. So they just kind of go out and do it on their own. So these can be people who are posting on social media about the feral cat population. They want to bring attention to that, so they post it on social media, or they go out and shovel their neighbor's driveway, or any of that sort of thing. They do that sort of thing on their own, and that is increasing. So the number of volunteers who are volunteering informally as opposed to volunteering with an organization is on the rise, and the ones who are volunteering for organizations are on a decline. And that's serious because while we want everybody to help, and the people who are doing it informally are doing wonderful work, if the organizations aren't supported with volunteers, they can't do their mission. They can't do what needs to be done. And I think a lot of not-for-profits need to think about how they can attract the people who are promoting their mission, but doing it informally, and look at why the people are doing it informally rather than going through an organization. What are the organizations not providing that these people need?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm also curious to ask you about how we populate nonprofit leadership with putting more women in positions of leadership in nonprofits. What do you think is the key to recruiting more female leaders of nonprofits?
Actually, we're doing fairly well in that. In especially the smaller not-for-profits, there is a high percentage of women in leadership on the boards, as board directors, in executive director positions. Where we seem to be falling back is in the larger organizations. The national or international organizations are where there tends to be a gap. And I think a lot of that just comes down to, like it is in any for-profit company, is that we get set in our ways. The bureaucracy gets set back however many decades ago, and we need to really look at how we recruit for those be and see where the stereotypes lie, the places where there is an inbred underlying belief that females aren't good enough or aren't strong enough or whatever to do major positions in large organizations. So smaller ones, we're doing great. Larger ones, we still need to work.
There's still more work to do.
Yeah.
And Karen, I'm curious for you. I'm curious how you define personal happiness and fulfillment.
Personal happiness, and for me, I'll tell you, I am a trained cabinet maker by trade.
Fabulous.
I was trained to build kitchen cabinets and things. I'm a benchwork joiner. I build furniture. I'm not sure if this will be a visual or just an audio thing, but the library behind me, I built.
All
the mahogany bookcases, everything like that, I built them. But I got to the point where I was sitting, I had a fight with my boss at work one day, and I was sitting there thinking, why am I doing this? I'm in a job which can be very satisfying in some ways, but really I'm making rich people's houses fancy. Because we were a high-end shop, and I thought, I'm not making a difference in the world. Really, I'm not. I don't want to do this anymore. I want to do something where I can improve people's lives. And so I sat down, I had a good long talk with myself. I said, okay, well, what should I be doing? And this seems to be it, is helping organizations further their missions. So it's not, I'm not just helping one organization by working for them directly. I'm helping hundreds of organizations by improving their volunteer programs. They advance their missions, whether that mission is children with diverse abilities, or whether it's environmental or health or whatever. I can go out and I can have some, I can make a difference. I can make a difference. And that's what really gets me going. That's what makes me happy.
Yeah, paying it forward. I always say, if you do it for someone else, the rewards you get personally will multiply, won't they?
Exactly. I can touch the world in so many ways just by helping not-for-profits with their volunteers. Because
Yeah,
each of those goes out and touches somebody else.
of
It's a
course.
glorious thing to do.
Absolutely. And, Karen, I'm always excited to have an opportunity to talk to another Canadian. As you know, I live here in Windsor and you're out there out west in British Columbia. So I'm curious for you, what's the best part about being Canadian?
We have a big heart. We have an amazingly big heart. Like I said, our volunteer rates are one of the highest in the world. It's just a joy. It's just a joy to be Canadian.
Yeah, absolutely. And tell me, for you, how do you think you want your personal and professional legacy to be defined?
I don't need a legacy. If I know in myself that I have done everything I can to leave the world a better place, that's all I need. I don't need someone else to see that. So long as I know it, that's what matters.
Yeah, absolutely. And finally, tell me, if people want to get connected with you, what's the best way they can do that?
My website is karenknight.ca. It's pretty simple, very, very easy one to do. I'm also on Facebook and LinkedIn. If I can put a bit of a plug in,
Absolutely, yeah.
if there are people who are in volunteer management positions, I'm putting on a free webinar at the end of this month on the 26th on the 5 steps to building a enthusiastic, reliable, and committed volunteer team. So if you go onto my website at karenknight.ca, you'll see the link to register for that, and it's complimentary, it's free.
Well, fabulous. Well, Karen, I want to thank you for joining me today and for all the great work that you do to advance nonprofits. I had a delightful time talking with you, and I shared with you before this began that tomorrow actually happens to be my birthday, and I couldn't
Happy birthday to you.
Well, thanks so much, and I couldn't think of a better way to end my week than talking to you. So I want to thank you for your time, energy, and efforts on my behalf. It's most appreciated.
It's been a joy to talk to you. I'm looking forward to hearing the podcast come out.